What do you think is happening right now with the? You mentioned it's going to stay stubborn, most likely a little bit longer, and other people are saying the same thing with the $2.5 trillion in, bridge debt and debt that needs to get refied over the next 2 years.
Well, that's where the fund comes in, right?
Exactly.
Look, it's as we talked about it earlier. You need a plan and you need capital. So if a borrower has a plan and has capital to execute that plan, why wouldn't its lending institution make a deal with them?
Yeah.
Right. Versus just selling it out into the marketplace, which takes time and you don't know who your counterparty is going to be, et cetera. But I think the problem is there's a lot of borrowers out there that they may have a plan, but they don't have capital. They may not have a plan either.
Yeah. They don't have equity in the deal. They're upside down on the deal. The deal's not cash flowing. They don't have any.
Or they don't have the ability to bring fresh capital into it, right? A lender's not going to discount unless you can say, okay, here's the money here's my plan to get from A to Z. And to get to A to Z, you don't mean to harp on it, but it's going to cost something.
Yeah.
It costs money when you lease space. You have tenant improvements. You may have to make physical improvements to the real estate itself to make it more leasable. You may have to replace building systems. All those things cost money. And if you can't prove to the lender that you've got the capital to do those things, why would they make a deal with you?
Right. So you're raising a fund right now?
We are.
Well, tell me how's this? What is this fund? What's the?
So this is, as I said, this is the fourth fund in our value fund series. We're raising $125 million to go out and buy, distressed industrial and office properties. I think we'll see more distress in office than we will in industrial, but there's still situations in industrial where people have bought things at 3 caps and put floating rate debt on it over the last few years, and
definitely
that floating rate debt costs 6, and you can't. And you can't recap out of it, and so there's problems there. But certainly in office, it suffers that problems, but also from a massive suck of liquidity out of the space as well. So it's to go out and capitalize on those opportunities. It's something we've proven over the last 17 years that we can find these things and essentially fix them and materially increase the value. So that's what we're looking to do. So we just started the process, and we'll probably have a closing around the end of the year, December, January.
Great. So do you specialize in certain pockets of Florida? Like when you mentioned near Tampa, or do you want to stay within 45 minutes of the city or like 30 minutes of a city?
So on the office side, we really focus on the 6 major markets: the Tri-County, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. In Tampa, Hillsborough and Pinellas, Orlando, mainly Orange County, and then Jacksonville. So that's from an office perspective. So where there's there's dynamic demand drivers. First, not to if you look at like a Southwest Florida, it's a great market. There's great homes. There's great communities. That don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with those places, but they're not dynamic demand drivers there. The office users in a market like Southwest Florida is mainly just a service business economy to service the people there. Versus you come to Miami and you've got finance, you've got tech, you've got international trade, you've got
everybody.
Dynamic demand drivers coming from most different angles. Industrial is very different. Everywhere needs distribution space. We have a few areas that we focus more on others. Specifically, and not to give away the secret sauce. But to touch a little bit. We call Florida to Florida distribution. So these are really central Florida markets where you can touch all 22 million residents of the state from the middle, right? And when you think about how our consumption habits, i.e., moving from really going to buy things at storefronts to having things directly delivered to our doorstep, we're moving from a hub and spoke distribution model to a point-to-point distribution model. So we see that epicenter in the state of Florida being markets in the center of the state, like Ocala, Lakeland, even parts of South Jacksonville.
Can you touch a little bit more on that? With when you said the 2 different models, so not like more like a secret sauce, but what you were saying when you're saying be in the center of Florida, the hub and spoke? I wasn't following that.
So, we historically you'd have a model where Atlanta it still is a great distribution market, but everything would come to Atlanta, and we take Atlanta to the retailer or right. So it's business to business. It's a hub and spoke model. Now we're going direct to consumer.
Yeah.
So for example, we own a 2 million square foot warehouse in Ocala. We lease about 1 million square feet there to Costco. So Costco does all of their bulk distribution in the state of Florida from this warehouse. So not if you're buying toilet paper or bottled water like I just drank or potato chips, but if you buy a couch from Costco, piece of furniture. So that gets delivered from the warehouse, our warehouse in Ocala, to, let's say, here in Boca Raton. There'll be a local last mile leg. They'll deliver right there to that last mile, and then that last mile delivered to your doorstep.
Right.
So we've seen these markets like Ocala be the epicenter for direct-to-consumer distribution for the state of Florida. And now we're a big state, so to be in one spot and be able to connect to 22 million people is a pretty important component of the supply chain, we believe. So we think some of these markets that have historically been sleepy little markets will, over the next 5 to 10 years, kind of develop into primary marketplaces.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you've enjoyed this clip and you'd like to watch the full episode, you can do so on my main YouTube channel by clicking the video here.